Please pray with me. Loving God, through the stories that your people have shared and the words that they've shared over the years, you've shown a bit of what you are like, and part of what you've shown is that you're a God who makes commitments and honours them. Thank you for your commitment to us, and help us likewise to honour our commitment to you and to each other. And may my words tonight be a help and an inspiration in doing just that. Amen. Right now I've got to say, I've got slightly more faith in this week's promises than last week's promises. The abundant rain, the early rains and the later rains, I think we're safe with, but not being wiped out by a flood, a little dicey today. My parents' house is cut off. You know, actually, of course, we know that both drought and floods are symptoms of the same thing, and we've been talking about it for a few weeks: rising CO2 levels, global warming, and all that. Because although God did promise not to wipe us out, God didn't promise we couldn't wipe ourselves out. Quite the reverse. We're quite free to reap the consequences of our own behaviour, which is a scary thing. But tonight, I'm not looking at rain and flood, but at prophecy, art, and the Holy Spirit. Not as odd a connection as you might think. Actually, they're really closely connected. Both of them are part of what it means to be in the image of God and people of the Spirit. I mentioned a little while ago I'm working through this book about setting free your inner artist, and a lot of it is very spiritual stuff, because it says that actually it's not about you being anything special, but about the Creator working through you. What you basically do is you stop blocking the whole thing and saying, no, I can't, and start saying, well, God can, and God's at work in me, so actually I can. And then just let it happen. And it's the same with all spirit stuff. It's gifts of the Spirit, it's works of the Spirit, and Joel says that everyone gets that now. Everyone's a prophet now. There are aspects of activism as well, which leads me to the conclusion that activism can also be a work of the Holy Spirit, and I think MCC's found that over the years, as of many other movements. But this is what I mean. The Spirit reveals the nature of God. In the Bible it says the name of God, but in Hebrew and other ancient Middle Eastern thinking, it's the same thing. A name is not just a label. It's not a set of letters or syllables that you just plonk on something so that you know what it is. It tells you something. It speaks of the nature of the thing in order to speak of its name, which is why God in the Bible has so many names, because each of them is about the nature of God. The Spirit reveals, it tells the truth about God. You know, at heart, God's Spirit is all about truth. Michael spoke last week about the difference between facts and truth. Not because truth ignores the facts, far from it, but because a fact is just a fact. It means nothing. It just is. We interpret it, we add it to the context of all the other facts and to the framework of the way we understand the facts, then it means something. We say, this fact is significant, this one is not. This is a coincidence, that had a cause. This is a good thing, that needs fixing. When they're just facts, that's all they remain. Truth gets involved, and we start involving the non-factual as a vehicle for understanding what's going on. Stories, artwork, music, dreams and visions, prophecies. So while you can't ignore or deny the facts, you've got to decide which ones are significant. And there you have the two first most important aspects of creativity and prophecy. One, perceiving what's actually there. Two, working out what's significant. Both of them, we sometimes act as if these are special magic gifts that a chosen few are born to. We're all made in God's image. We're all made creative images of the Creator. We're all given the Spirit, each in different ways. Yeah, but it's the same Spirit. And one of the most fundamental aspects of the Spirit is perceiving things as they are. The first thing a painter learns, for instance, is how to look at things and see them as they are, not as we assume they are. A musician has to learn to listen. To tell a story, you've got to pay attention to the world, to what people really do, how people really talk, to the way the world actually works. Only then can you make up a story about it that works. So clearly this isn't a magic gift, it's a skill that you develop. It's something you grow, it's something you learn, it's something you practice over and over again. It's a gift of the Spirit, which means it's a gift from within, from the divine within us. Some call it mindfulness, some call it being in the moment, some call it being attuned to the universe. My mother called it paying attention. It's all the same thing. Stephen and Sheila have helped us with it in prayer times sometimes. Learning to be aware, here, now. This breath, this feeling, this colour, this texture, this taste, this person, this moment, this need. That is what the prophet does. Sees the reality. It's not a mystical vision of the future, it's attention, careful attention to the present. And then discernment of what matters. Because there's no point seeing everything if you're then distracted all the time by trivia when you're trying to act. Judgment, discernment, decision, it's another spirit gift, and it's another thing you practice, another thing you have to use. You're not born with it switched on like that. It only comes when you do it, when you practice it, when you keep going. Just like music, just like drawing. Nobody was born perfect. You practice. And so then when trouble comes, as it does, as it will, because we're human, we attract trouble, we create trouble, just as we can create solutions to trouble, if we try. When trouble comes, then we can be prophets. Tellers of truth, makers of creative solutions. Joel speaks of blood-red moons and dark skies. This isn't a made-up story. This is a consequence of a disaster. A volcano, perhaps, a meteorite strike, a dust storm, a forest fire, or, in our time, a bomb or a missile. The prophet has seen, perhaps, or heard those who have witnessed such things, and reasonably supposed it was the end of the world. And so, when we perceive such things, we can reasonably predict dire results, famines, floods, more refugees, more homelessness, more hunger. When we see it coming, disasters, great and small, human rights abuses, because we're paying attention, and because we've realised what's important, then we're ready to be prophets. Not a chosen few, but like Joel says, all God's people, the young and the old, the men and the women, the free and the slaves. In his terms, that means everyone, every last one, are now to be prophets of God. When they call on the name, the nature of God, love, faithfulness, justice, mercy, forgiveness, hope, when we declare allegiance to such things, not to the gods of self, then we're ready to stand, then we're ready to be part of salvation. I don't know what it will look like calling on the name of the Lord and being saved. I'm pretty sure it's not going to look anything like the rapture. But I can take a guess at what declaring the divine nature and being part of salvation looks like. because I've seen it work in MCC and out of it. So we've had stages 1 and 2. We've perceived, we've discerned. Stage 3 is passing it on, declaring it, telling it, spreading it, sharing it. This is the bit we notice. The bit where the artist creates the art, the bit where the prophet prophesies. This is the bit we notice, but to be honest, the hard work's already been done. That was the first part. But this is the bit where we use whatever skills we have, each of us in our own way, to let others know what we've come to know. Van Gogh, he saw what he saw in a winter sky or a cornfield and used paint so that we could see it too. Holst perceived something about the nature of war or about the nature of old age, and we hear it in the music of Mars and Saturn in the planets. Joel saw a war coming and hope beyond it and wrote words which have become immortal. But you don't have to be Van Gogh or Holst or Shakespeare or a biblical prophet. Well, even the biblical prophets, Amos was a farmer, Peter was a fisherman, Jeremiah was just a kid. But they came up with creative ways to share the message. I know you can be creative. You're human. It's part of what being human's all about. I know you can pay attention to the world and tell what matters. I've seen you do it. You're people of the Spirit. I know you can be prophets of God's message. Joel was right, and the Spirit is for everyone. The world needs you. God's called you. You've got what it takes. Let's go.